Hello, welcome to Share Your Story with Policymakers. My name is Britta Dornan, and I am the Every Life Foundation for Rare Diseases Senior Director of Communications and Marketing. This is what today is going to look like. We are here to help prepare you for your meetings with Congress. Big days coming up at Rare Disease Week, so we want to help you share your stories with them and have really successful outcomes. So we're here today together until 3 o'clock. So between now and then, we're going to help you learn what to expect in these meetings, how to craft what we call an elevator pitch of your story and what you would like to ask of members of Congress. And so we're going to do that for about 15 or so minutes. And then we're going to break out into small groups with our wonderful coaches, and you're going to give it a go. Practice your pitch and get some helpful, productive, positive feedback. And then we're all going to come back together before the hour is up and bounce off what we learned together. So keep that in mind. If there's anything that you pick up during your breakout rooms that you think, wow, that was an aha moment for me, we'd love to hear from you and have you share that with the group at the end. So with that, let's get started with Mrs. Sarah Tompkins, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome patient advocate, whom I'm sure you all know. She's our Rare Disease Week Advocacy Chair. Sarah.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be helping coach and prepare for your meetings. I'm an Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and rare disease patient and advocate, and I'm so excited that you're here for Rare Disease Week 2022. And a little bit about crafting your message when speaking to your legislators and policymakers for your upcoming meetings. One of the important things is to understand your legislators' role in the legislation. Have they been supportive of rare disease before? What has their support looked like for other policy and legislation that RDLA has discussed before in past Rare Disease Weeks? And also understand what committees they've participated in or led. For example, Senator Murray sits on the Health, Education, and Labor Help Committee, and that means that she's not able to, because of conflict of interest, always support our bills or legislation or sponsor them. And so it's really relevant in those meetings to understand what I'm able to ask her. And use the resources of online's rareadvocates.org/RDW, where you can learn more about the scorecards of your legislators to see what kind of issues that you're going to target and that they're working on. And remember to follow them on social media and join their town halls, go to their websites, and keep up that relationship that way by keeping your social media following intact. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so a little bit about preparing for your meetings. As you know, virtual meetings are sort of hard to gauge exactly if everyone will be able to attend, but you're going to meet up with your group beforehand. But it's important that you have your key message, your bullet points that you want to deliver, and an elevator speech that's around 90 seconds in case you're not able to have that much time. And a good example of this is, imagine that you have an elevator ride with your policymaker to explain your rare disease and a little bit of your story with your legislative ask, knowing that you can follow up with email with any important materials, and to use those supporting materials like backgrounds from your patient community and patient population, as well as the resources of RDLA and Every Life, like the Rare Disease Burden Study that has such significant statistics for us to be able to use. Next slide, please. And what legislators expect from you. They are not allotted a lot of time for these meetings, so it's important for us to be concise and compelling using that personal story with your legislative ask to make sure that you're sharing your contact information to be accessible and credible and reasonable. And another way of doing this is to be really honest. The best answer if you don't know something is to say, I don't know, but please let me follow up with you and get back with that answer, or look into it and let you know further. And Again, knowing their role, their platforms, what committees they're on, their history, what legislation and policies they've supported and views is very informative to you. And show how the problem on this of your experience applies to them and their constituents. For example, I often say that even I am very privileged to have incredible care and surgical repairs, so that I'm able to advocate as much as I do, but I represent a huge patient population in the state of Washington, and especially in this district. And be prepared with your one-pagers and congressional scorecards that you can find online at the Rare Advocates Rare Disease website. It's really helpful to have those legislative one-pagers in front of you and virtually, so that you can send them to your policymaker after your meeting, just so that they can have all of the details of your discussion. And remember, you're the expert of your story. Just sharing what you've been through is not only advocating for yourself, but for your patient population. So as long as you're sharing your story, you're doing your part in advocating for others. And speaking from the heart is the best way to kind of conduct these meetings. It's helpful to have details of notes or bullet points, but really try to just be conversational, because that's what's going to authentically connect you to your policymaker and legislators and staff, and make them really connect with your story and your ask. Next slide, please. And a little bit about message delivery. So some rules of the road when crafting this message for your legislators is that you are in the driver's seat. It can be very nerve-wracking having these very short time periods, but as long as you are able to craft your personal experience with your ask, you are an effective advocate. And a good rule of thumb that I've tried to go by is, if something's too emotional for me to talk about, where I cry, I might not be ready to share that quite yet, or I might need to paraphrase it in a way that I'm able to share emotionally, that's still compelling, but doesn't throw me off the meeting or throw me off of my topic. So less can be more. And remember that anything that you feel like you're not able to say in the meetings, you can always do in follow-up. And sometimes that's the best way to establish a relationship. And I think that brevity, so that everyone can be heard, is really appreciated by staff and policymakers in their offices. Next slide, please. And knowing a little bit about how to craft your message. So a good rule of thumb is to look at problem, solution, and ask. In this case, the problem is the rare disease community's needs for treatments and cures. And the solution is going to be one of the legislative asks that's important to your rare disease community. So for example, with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, we need a lot more genetic research and testing, and the availability of that to Medicare and Medicaid patients. So I will be asking for the legislative ask of Access to Genetic Counselor Support Services Act, because I know that that will really help not only my Ehlers-Danlos patient population, but the whole rare disease community as well. And so it's really crafting not only my personal story, but an ask, being as brief as possible. And then I can follow up, inviting them to more local things and giving them the one pager on that Access to Genetic Counselor Services, really explaining in the follow-up why it's so meaningful and why it will be so impactful. How to develop your ask.
All right, now we will toss this over to Mr. Jack Maloro, our Community Congress Program Coordinator, to dig into what we mean by this term, ask.
Thanks, Britta. Yeah, so we just heard from Sarah. Thank you so much, Sarah, about how to really present yourself at your meetings. And now we can dive into some of the asks that we at Every Life have prepared. Next slide, please. So we have put together 5 suggested asks. These asks have more information on our website. We can provide one-pagers on all of these, but we want to make sure that you know that this is your meeting. Right, we're putting you in there with your legislators. So if you have your own asks, maybe about your own disease area, or if you have your own relationship with these legislators, we encourage you to bring your own asks and to use this time as you think it'll best be used. But these 5 asks that we're going to go through, we think will help support the entire rare community. Next slide, please. So the first one we have is about joining the Rare Disease Congressional Caucus. And as you can see here, we've built this slide out and all the other asks in the way that Sarah just described. So there is a problem, we can offer a solution, and then you have a concrete ask to make to your legislator. So for the Rare Disease Congressional Caucus, the problem is really awareness, in that we all know that the rare community has many different issues than a lot of other health areas and disease areas. And the solutions are going to be very different because of how rare the disorders are. So the solution is to ask your legislator to join the Rare Disease Congressional Caucus. This is a way for them to publicly show support for the rare community, and also for them to receive the most up-to-date information from us and other nonprofits about updates in the rare community. So we actually offer Congressional Caucus briefings every few months. So we encourage you to check our website and see if your representatives are current members of the Rare Disease Congressional Caucus. If they are, we'd ask you to thank them for their support. And if they're not, maybe ask them to join the Rare Disease Congressional Caucus. Second ask is the Speeding Therapy Across Today Act, or the STAT Act as it's more commonly known. The problem here is that between 93 to 95% of known rare diseases have no approved therapy, and the development process to create a drug can take, on average, 15 years. So the STAT Act is designed to lessen that development odyssey for rare disease drugs. And one concrete way in which it'll do that is by creating a center of excellence in the FDA. Now, this is a model that is based on oncology. It's been a very successful model for the cancer community. And we hope by bringing together experts and policymakers in the rare disease community under one umbrella in the FDA, that we can facilitate and speed up the development of rare disease drugs. So we would ask that you encourage your legislators to co-sponsor the STAT Act, or if they're already co-sponsors, to please thank them for co-sponsoring this bill.
And I will jump in here for Jack. Thanks, Jack, so much. So the third aspect we're talking about would be the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Reauthorization Act. And so newborn screening is generally viewed as one of the most successful public health programs within the country. But the problem at the moment is that the newborn screening programs, they need updating every now and then. And the reauthorization has led to the federal newborn screening program being expired as of September 30th, 2019, because this bill has not yet passed. And so the solution really goes into the important parts of the bill and where you see the improvements with the HRSA grants helping to expand and improve screening programs within those states. And so the ask is to co-sponsor the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Reauthorization Act. This signifies the importance of the bill to the rest of Congress and highlights the need to get this passed. And so the growing amount of congressmen and senators who are able to sign on as co-sponsors, the bigger profile the bill gets and the more likely that we can get it passed. Next slide, please. Next would be the Better Empowerment Now to Enhance Framework and Improve Treatments Act, also known as the Benefit Act. And so the problem is that there's a lack of any requirement under law that the FDA has to include patient experience or patient-focused drug development as part of its risk-benefit framework. And that is a key part of the FDA's approval process and really looking at how they want to approve or not approve the condition. And so the solution is essentially solving that problem. How do we work to amend the law to ensure the fact that PFDD has to be included in that risk-benefit assessment? And so what it would do is it would essentially create a part of the form that will be required to use that patient experience, patient-focused drug development in that risk-benefit analysis and send a strong signal of the importance of patient-focused drug development. And again, the ask would be to co-sponsor the Benefit Act. Similar to that of the newborn screening reauthorization is it sends a signal to the rest of Congress about the importance of this bill and helps to move it along towards passage. Next slide, please. And our last ask today is the Access to Genetic Services Act. So currently the problem is that Medicare policy denies direct access to genetic counselors. And they are so important in today's world especially within diagnostic testing. As more and more genetic testing becomes available, we need these genetic counselors to help patients really understand what their results are saying, because these genetic tests can say a whole lot, and having these wonderfully trained professionals to walk you through what exactly each test means and what your results mean can be so impactful. And so the solution is essentially to allow direct access. It would allow for direct access to genetic counselors, and a key part of that is it would do it at 85% of the cost of what it would cost to pay a physician to do the exact same thing. And so it allows access to these trained professionals while doing it at a reduced cost. And again, the ask would be to co-sponsor the Genetic Counselor Services Act. And with that, next slide, please. And I'll pass it back to Britta.
Right, thank you so much. That was Dylan Simon, ladies and gentlemen, our Associate Director of Public Policy. Thank you, Dylan and Jack, for joining us. They're two of our awesome experts from our policy team to take us through that. Really appreciate it. I know it can seem a bit much getting all that rapid fire, but don't worry, that's what we're here for. And if we could put a link again in the chat so that everyone has a quick link to the Rare Disease Week event page, where links to each one of those legislative asks. There's a one-pager for each of them that is on that event page. And when we go into our breakout sessions, there are materials on that page that would be helpful if you had handy. The one-pagers for the legislative asks. There's a tips and advice flyer that sums up what we just talked about. And there's a worksheet. Some of you may already have looked at these already. It'd be great to have those up when we go into our breakouts. So let me just say, these are our wonderful faces of our coaches today. So you don't have to do anything, just stay put, and you'll be put into a Zoom room with one of us. And if you would like to share your story, go ahead and put your name and your location and your disease affiliation in the chat window. That will help, because we do have a full house today, and the coaches will call on you. Everyone may not be able to go today, but we're going to get to as many of you as possible. We're going to break out for 25 minutes and then come back together. Great. Sarita Edwards, if you'd like to introduce yourself and help us with our key takeaways.
Awesome, I sure will. Hey guys, I am Sarita Edwards. I am Rare Disease Week Advocacy Vice Chair for 2022. So excited to be here with you. I am CEO and President at the EWE Foundation. We are a healthcare advocacy organization. We facilitate resources and provide financial support to families with Edwards syndrome, commonly known as trisomy 18. I'm also a parent advocate. Our fifth kid, Elijah, was diagnosed in utero with full trisomy 18. And so that's what started my advocacy and public policy journey. So we want to hear from you. Does anybody want to volunteer to share something that they learned from their breakout session? Any takers?
Make it personal.
Make it personal. Mm-hmm. Mylene, you got your hand up? You got something?
I did learn because, like in my district, I'm in Southern California, and sometimes a representative for patients, there might be 2 patients, there might be 10 patients. So I've just taken away that I could do a 90-second, but also to prepare one for a little bit longer in case you are the only representative for your group in there. So I will now prepare 2 speeches.
Ah. Good stuff.
Mei-Ling, I had a question. When you say a little bit longer than 90 seconds, what is a little bit longer than 90 seconds? Is that like you could have spoken for 10 minutes? You could have spoken for 20 minutes? Like, how long do you think would have been useful for you to prepare your material?
Okay, I think it depends upon how many of your group is in the room. I mean, sometimes you could be in a room where there are 25 patients, or like last year, because of my district in Southern California, there were 3 patients who signed up for, Karen Bass's district. if you happen to be one of 3 or 5 people and the meeting is for 15 minutes, then you obviously have more than 90 seconds to speak. I think you could probably speak until you're cut off. I wouldn't go longer than 3 in case somebody, maybe the representative will want to ask questions and then you can interact.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Mei-Ling. Really good advice. Prepare for 90. I mean, you can have a couple minutes, maybe another 30, 60 seconds, but then exactly save room for them to talk. Really, really great advice. I want to get to Sarah Bolton, whose hand was up.
I was just going to share, going off of what Kevin shared about keeping it really personal. I think storytelling is powerful and it really connects. And then somebody in our group, you know, really shared the experience that they were having. You know, they're a caregiver for their son and they literally have to do everything for their son. I think like using really descriptive images and it makes it easier for other people to understand.
I'm watching the time, guys. I'm not trying to cut you off. We're going to get Jeanette real quick. We do have a share your story on the Every Life Foundation, so y'all can share your stories there too. Jeanette, let me get you.
I just want to say that our group was wonderful. Awesome. One thing we had fall back on is if we don't know exactly what to ask, we can always go to the NIH and the FDA for funding. And that's something that I can take back to my sarcoidosis group as well. And I really appreciated the fact that we could hear people who have been caregivers and who also need care. That's a two-edged sword that I don't think a lot of people talk about. Oh, I'm sorry. North Carolina's redistricting, so we don't know who's going to be our
That's a really
person.
Really, really great point. As caregivers, we still need care. Really, really great point. And I see, is it Ali?
Ali.
Yes. You're up.
Yeah, so I learned that sometimes the senators may not be present themselves, so they will be sending in representatives. And if we do not get to see them, that we should not be discouraged, that we should just still go ahead and give our pitch and do what we need to do. So I was very thankful for getting that information.
Absolutely. Take advantage of the opportunity. Whoever's in the room, take advantage of the opportunity. Thank y'all so much for participating and sharing what you learned. We really, really appreciate it. So to really close everything out with self-practice, use your phone and record yourself is something that we encourage. That's one way to practice your elevator pitch. Record yourself and play it back and see what do you get from what you heard. How did you feel when you heard yourself sharing your story? How much time did you take? Is there something you can take out, or do you need to add something else in there? How was your tone? How did you sound? Did you talk too fast? Did you talk too slow? Those are all the things to consider, because remember, we're in a virtual space. And so we want to be as effective and efficient as possible. But we still want to be concise with our time. Did you repeat yourself? Think about if you had that nervous, or was it a confident, I'm getting my next statement ready. So think about all of that stuff when you play it back. Let somebody else watch it on the video, but then let them hear you practice as well. Did you include your call to action? And then what did you do well? Because the whole goal is to practice, to build that level of confidence when you're speaking to your members. We want you to be confident in what you're doing and what you're saying when you have this opportunity. So I think I'm turning it over right now to Stephanie to tell us a little bit about sharing your story beyond rare disease.
Thank you so much, Sarita. Yes, my name is Stephanie Reardon. I am the Patient Programs Manager with the Every Life Foundation, and part of my role is managing the Rare Artist Program. And so we are very, very excited that you all joined us today to share your story and learn how to share it with your legislators. We have another exciting opportunity for you to learn how to share your story through art. So this is through RDLA and also in partnership with rare artist, we will be having an amazing panel with some artists who have experience with the rare disease community and sharing their story through art, and we'll have breakout sessions amongst that as well. So save the date. That will be on April 7th, 2022 at noon Eastern time. And Sarita mentioned as well, we love hearing your stories, and please, please continue sharing them with us. If you have not shared your story in our story bank yet, please do so and visit everylifefoundation.org/story. If you submit your story by March 2nd, which is the end of Rare Disease Week, you will be entered in a chance to win a $1,500 donation to a patient advocacy organization of your choice. The questions for this story bank are absolutely amazing. As a member of the rare disease community, myself, kudos to the team that put this together. They are absolutely great questions that really allow you to get thinking and really prompt those responses to share your story. Thanks, Sarita.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. So thank you to everybody who took the time to be with us today. Before you go, as you're signing off, we want your feedback. So a survey will pop up as you are logging off. Please take just a couple of seconds to complete that survey for us. We will greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Please let us know how we can help you as you continue preparing for Rare Disease Week. See y'all soon. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
See you at Rare Disease Week.
Yes, ma'am.